Good morning. Jim Townsend here again. My website is at townsend.b. I wanted to talk this morning about playing in the stupid box because I kind of feel that's what government has us doing. I've often thought that we were entirely mind manipulated. I've been kind of interested in political processes my whole life. I was 13 years old in 1969. I went on a protest march down to Bellingham in Washington. And the reason I did that because at the time the United States was letting off a nuclear bomb on Amchitka Island. And I thought, well, that's pretty dumb, letting off a nuclear device 12 miles from the Russian border. What the hell's with that? And, I thought, you got to remember that this is at the height of the Cold War stuff and all the mutually assured destruction. And and living in British Columbia, we're sitting right in the middle of it all. And I thought, well, the Americans are trying to start something. So I went and protested. And I know the border at that time was just, you could walk right over the border. When we were kids, we lived in Surrey. We used to walk over the American border all the time. We'd go down to Birch Bay to the Ferris wheel down there and play at the beach and stuff like that. I was pretty young. I think my oldest sister was only 12 years old. Well, you want to talk about going from one world into a completely different world. I listened to Big John Lipscomb on Don't Tread on Me.tv. He was very interesting man to listen to, and I know he made a comment a couple of times that he's often wondered what happened to the planet he was born on and where did he step off. So you can imagine how I kind of feel about all the stuff that's going on nowadays. I mean, here I grew up in an environment where you could, your parents would let you cross the border into another country. I mean, that's unheard of. Now that border is just tightened right up. Once you've had a little bit of a life, if you got any sort of a memory, you start looking back at certain events. So that's an event I look back at. Just after that, as many of you probably know from listening to my videos, I was put into a group home out in Chilliwack. Well, when I was in the group home, I joined Air Cadets, and I was on the marksman team, and I loved shooting 22s. Actually, that's the only reason I got a social insurance card and got into the into cadets, because I just wanted to shoot 22 with friends of mine. But I was pretty good at it. And we went to a competition down in Whidbey Island in the States. Now, the interesting thing about that trip was, they showed us all around. Man, I never seen so much food in all my life. I think I had 3 bowls of ice cream. Oh, you can have all the ice cream you want. It was pretty good. Nice guys too. I mean, they really went out of their way, the Americans, to show us a good time down there. We were young boys. They showed us all the tanks and all that other sort of stuff. But one thing I remember when we were out in the airfield, they showed us a helicopter with guys rappelling out of it. We were just right impressed with that. Of course, all of us wanted to try it. They were about to let us. But the interesting thing was they had this neat airplane, and the airplane was called a P-2 Neptune. Now, what I remember about it at that point in time, we were just awestruck. This is a $22 million plane, and they told us it could be flown remote control. It could be flown by remote control. So many years later, whenever I saw the WTC fall, I thought, And I remember getting into an argument with somebody just after that, and they said, "Oh, Jim, you're a conspiracy nut kind of a thing. Those were hijacked and all that other sort of stuff." And I said, "Well, to tell you the truth, I think the buildings were bombed, and it's quite possible that the planes could be flown in by remote control." Now, that was probably back in about 71 or something like that. So that's many years they've already had these remote controlled planes. As I mentioned, I hitchhiked all over North America. Well, quite a few times I had to ride the rails, jump onto a boxcar and head down the track, and I just noticed things. I walked along, and I don't know, I guess I just got a processor that's looking for different things. So I noticed that America and Canada pretty well have the same rail. Then I got a job up in northern BC. It was only for about a week when I was wandering around. It was actually before I got a job out in Alberta. Got a job up in Prince George working for BC Rail. Got sent up north of Fort St. James to put in new steel. Actually, I worked on an extra gang first of all out at Mackenzie, BC, and then got sent up to north of Fort St. James to put in new steel. And I right away noticed that the steel was a lot heavier than any steel that I'd ever seen before. And I said, well, why is this? It was 110-pound steel. Most steel in North America is 90 pound. Well, why is this? And I asked the foreman there, Portuguese foreman, and he says, oh, it's because it's so cold up here. And, we need heavier steel to keep the rails from warping and stuff like that. That seems odd. There's all this rail all over northern Canada, up to Edmonton and everything. It's all 90 pound. Well, it wasn't until many years later. Actually, at that point in time, I also discovered what he said to me was they were going to be replacing the rail all the way back down to the American border on BC Rail. And many years later, I discovered that China and Russia both moved their troops by rail. You see, rail is the most efficient way of moving goods and people. And for that reason, I've always been rather upset that they kind of always been screwing around with Canada's railways. We have shitty roads, we've got no railways left or anything else. We're pretty well dependent on the United States, and I've often thought that maybe that's a setup on purpose. So then I realized at that point in time that they've already built heavy rail all the way from Alaska right down to the U.S. border. And Chinese and Russian troop ships or troop trains all move on heavy rail. So I think that we've been set up for all of this nonsense for a very long time. Another thing that kind of relates into that is the Weights and Measures Act. We can never figure out why we went on to the metric system. Nobody knew metric. I mean, even to this day, I still make the conversion back to feet and inches and miles so that I can understand it in my head. That's how I grew up, right? But it's a good way to kind of separate people, I think. It separated us more from the United States. And I just see this whole thing as they're trying to start something between Canada and the U.S., just like they did over in Europe and all that other sort of stuff. These people that we elect that are supposed to be our representatives, they do the strangest things. George Bush signed an agreement with Stephen Harper to use each other's troops in their respective countries. Now, there's really no reason to ever have an army other than to protect your own border. Well, what border is Afghanistan on with Canada? This idea of peacekeeping is just an entire canard. It is so stupid. You don't keep peace with a gun. You want peace? Send the Afghanis flowers. Send them boxes of chocolates. Send them a food shipment that you don't put bombs in. Did you hear about that? The Americans going over there and dropping yellow packets with bombs and food in, and little kids picking them up and blowing their arms off and stuff like that. Now, I don't know if that's a rumor, but to me that just seems so much like what these people that do, that these powers that be. You see these latest reports that China's attacking everything through the internet and all that other sort of stuff. BS. When I was a kid, I played war games, and war games aren't what you think they are, and they're not like the little game on TV and all that other sort of stuff. And I can tell you that most of the viruses that are out on the internet got put there by the U.S. Navy. At one time, they had no security to think of on their computers and everything, and you could just wander wherever you wanted to. I got hundreds of viruses off the U.S. Navy databases just to play with and stuff like that and see how they were written. I mean, I never got into it because I kind of think those people are losers. I don't really care for destroyers. If you have any brains, you'll go out and create. So this nonsense that we're under attack by China and all that other sort of stuff, I think is total horse pucky. I think what it is Canada and the U.S., we've got these Jewish infiltrated governments, and they're doing everything that they can do to take us down. Like I keep on telling people, read Deuteronomy 20 verses 10 to 20 and let the lights go on. Ask yourself if this is just an innocuous religious text or whether it is an agenda to enslave and rule the world. Take care, y'all. Love ya. Peace. to you.